The Jewish people are dispersed throughout the Persian Empire. In many places there is a sense of anti-Semitism against them. King Ahasuerus came to the throne and 3 years later had a great celebration of the greatness of the kingdom. He thought he would display his beautiful queen Vashti, but she refused to be treated in such a manner and disobeyed him. In anger, he made a law that a man should be in charge of his own household, and deposed her from the position of queen. Later he regretted his action, but the law of the Medes and Persians cannot be changed, and his advisers suggested they search out beautiful young women, that he might choose one of them as a new queen. And so, in the 7th year of his reign, he was introduced to Esther, a Jewess who had not revealed her Jewish connections. She stood out from the crowd, both in beauty and character. The king was so delighted with her, he appointed her as the new queen. After these things, King Ahasuerus promoted Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, and advanced him and set his seat above all the princes who were with him. And all the king's servants who were within the king's gate bowed and paid homage to Haman, for so the king had commanded concerning him. But Mordecai would not bow or pay homage. Then the king's servants, who were within the king's gate, said to Mordecai, "Why do you transgress the king's command?" Now it happened, when they spoke to him daily, and he would not listen to them, that they told it to Haman, to see whether Mordecai's words would stand. For Mordecai had told them that he was a Jew. When Haman saw that Mordecai did not bow or pay homage, Haman was filled with wrath. But he disdained to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they had told him of the people of Mordecai. Instead, Haman sought to destroy all the Jews who were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus, the people of Mordecai. In the 1st month, which is the month Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast Pur, that is, the lot, before Haman to determine the day and the month, until it fell on the 12th month, which is the month of Adar. Then Haman said to King Ahasuerus, "There is a certain people scattered and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of your kingdom. Their laws are different from all other peoples, and they do not keep the king's laws. Therefore it is not fitting for the king to let them remain. If it pleases the king, let a decree be written that they may be destroyed, and I will pay 10,000 talents of silver into the hands of those who do the work, to bring it into the king's treasuries." So the king took his signet ring from his hand and gave it to Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of the Jews. And the king said to Haman, "The money and the people are given to you, to do with them as seems good to you." And the king's scribes were called on the 13th day of the 1st month, and a decree was written according to all that Haman commanded, to the king's satraps, to the governors who were over each province, to the officials of all the people, to every province according to its script, and to every people in their language. In the name of King Ahasuerus it was written, and sealed with the king's signet ring, and the letters were sent by couriers into all the king's provinces, to destroy, to kill, and to annihilate all the Jews, both young and old, little children and women, in one day, on the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, and to plunder their possessions. A copy of the document was to be issued as law in every province, being published for all the people, that they should be ready for that day. The couriers went out, hastened by the king's command, and the decree was proclaimed in Shushan the citadel. So the king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city of Shushan was perplexed. My name's Arthur, and I thank you for joining me as we share together from Esther chapter 3. These events occurring about 470 BC, 5 years after Esther became queen. Haman had promoted himself, and the king took more notice of him than the other councillors and promoted him. The king had declared that everyone should pay homage to Haman as the king's representative, but one man stood out, a man who was regularly in the gate of the king's court, and yet he did not bow down when Haman came in and out. At first Haman didn't notice, but the others in the gate felt Mordecai didn't fit in, and they quizzed him and found out he was a Jew and reported him to Haman. Haman then determined he would deal with Mordecai, but not only with Mordecai, he would wipe out all the Jews. For this is Satan's intention. God has promised that he will bless the world through the Jewish people. So all Satan has to do is to destroy all the Jewish people, and God will be beaten. God will not be able to bless the world. So he has tried and tried and tried again. Part of God's strategy was to disperse the Jews among the nations, but this decree that Haman sought would track them down wherever they were, in every one of the provinces. The thing that I find most remarkable is the way that they set the date. We know that if you toss a coin, half the time it's going to be heads and half the time it will be tails. And this is the process by which they determined which month the extermination of the Jews would happen. So they tossed the coin, as it were, cast lots for the second month, for the third month, and each time the answer was no, 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 and eventually for the 12th month, yes. A most extraordinary result. Even so, Haman didn't get the message that God was not behind this project. But obviously it can happen, and it did happen. And so the date was set. There was 11 months for the children of Israel to prepare for the day when they would be attacked by their enemies. But there was no provision for them to defend themselves. This was just the day set for their enemies to attack them. Haman didn't explain exactly what the problem was with the Jews. He just spoke in vague terms. Their laws are different from all other people's. That's because they follow God's law rather than keeping the king's law. But the king's law is meant to enact God's law, so there's not really a problem there. And he says it's not fitting that they should remain because they're different. Well, how many times has that been used to pick on a particular group? We'll get rid of them because they're different. God has made us all unique. We are all different. And so the decree is that they will be destroyed. And Haman will pay for it. And so he brings 10,000 talents of silver. The king commissions him to use that to do the work. The letters of authority distributed throughout the whole 127 provinces in the language of the people, to destroy, to kill, to annihilate all the Jews, both young and old, little children and women, in one day, on the 13th day of the 12th month, and to plunder their possessions. The letters were written on the 13th day of the first month, and distributed on the 14th day, which is Passover, the celebration of the day when the children of Israel were delivered from Egypt. The decree for destruction included a personal incentive for people to get involved. They could take the possessions of any Jew they killed on that day. It wasn't simply an act of judgment. Now this is contrary to the way God required the Jews to act when disciplining nations, not to take their possessions, as we saw when the Lord sent Saul to judge the Amalekites. The document is distributed, and the people are perplexed.